Greetings, welcome. Kyle here from Tippecanoe Herbs, where I make all kinds of herbal medicine and I forage and I prepare it and make clinical preparations for people. And from Root Radical Herbal Academy, where that's my school, where I teach everybody how to do what I do. And today I'm going to be starting off a series called World Tree. And it's not the first time I've done this. I did it live actually once. And I decided, that didn't go so well. So I'm back here just recording it by myself so I can make sure that it does have, so that people can access this presentation. But I'll be doing the series over and over and over until I feel it's done, at least for a year, a tree a month probably. And here's the intention. I would like to really hone in my cosmology. I would really like to be able to supplement from a cosmological view my calling as an herbalist and really infuse a little bit more meaning into the medicine that I make. And I think that I can offer a different perspective to a conversation about the cosmology from this world tree perspective. I will like to focus on a different tree every month that has a fractal nature from the cosmic pole. So we have our cosmic central axis of the plane of inertia, and a pole that connects it to heaven. We can call that the axis mundi. We can call it celestial pole, a world pillar. But I love how it's very often symbolically linked to a tree. And I'm really interested in exploring how we don't have just that central pillar that moves all the way up from our realm to the realm above, but also how we've taken a representation of that and brought that into our culture, brought that into our communities, brought that into our homes, and exploring the ways that we replicate the power from finding that central axis that brings us closer to our creator. So it's kind of a shamanic journey, and that's what this whole thing is about. It's a shamanic journey, looking at the tree of life, the world tree. So this has been an important thread ever since ancient times, really. Today's the first episode, we're going to talk about the Bay Laurel tree, and I'll get to the reasons why here in a second. So I'm going to give you a couple examples here. First is, I have my presentation here, the logo for our school that I'd like to shout out Mario from Symbolic Studies. He's I gave him a bunch of ideas about what I'd like, and he's so well versed in symbolic nature that he just took it away and made some beautiful art here. So we have a representation of this central pole here cutting down, and in an electromagnetic field, which is, I think, a lot of times this central or this world tree is representing this electromagnetic field that we all share, that we have in the realm and personally as well. This is the dielectric plane right here down the center, and the magnetic field that moves around it. So it can look like the shape of a torus or toroidal field if you split it in half. I have an apple here as an example. I could cut it down the center here, and you would see a similar representation where the stem is. And all of this hermetic ideas, as above, so below, within, without, and all the different representations of the trees throughout time, and the fractality of the individual through the community up to the actual central axis itself. And this is that toroidal field, another example of that shape once again. Here we have a, let me just put this here for a second. I got a cool prop. I found this. This is somebody's cushion for, I don't know, their butt or something. And it's a donut shaped. They could sit on it like that. And so here's this is that picture that I was just showing you, was that toroidal field, as if you were looking at it like that. There's one hole of the donut and there's the other. Right through here, the dielectrical plane, centripetal moving outwards, centrifugal moving back towards the center. This is the, you could say, this is the trunk, or this is the trunk, this is the canopy, and these are the roots here at the bottom. Back to the presentation. And there's a tree right in the center there. You see that? The Celtic world tree, there's just many representations throughout art, stylized. We have these patterns that are not just the shape of the realm itself, but all the way down to the individual. We're sitting inside of a donut like this. Going back to my example here, I have Orsatino. This is a little doll from my son's little Orsetto doll. And if I put him in here like that, that's what his electromagnetic field would look like. It would radiate out like that. Orsatino's filled with love. So his electromagnetic field extends far beyond the regular little bear. It's really interesting too. Bear, whenever there's a bear symbolism, it's also pointing to this central pillar, the central axis. And that has a lot to do with the constellation of Ursa Major, which is the bear constellation. Anyway, so we see here we have a individual representation of our own personal world tree. That line that goes straight up of our center, the Shashumna, the central axis, the axis mundi that connects us all the way up to the spirit. And we, because we are magnetic beings, we gravitate towards other places that have that same sort of electromagnetic radiance to them, that have that same sort of connection from heaven all the way down. We're born with it. This is a placenta. This is how beautiful the signatures and patterns are in nature, and how intelligent it is to have this work of art signed by its creator. This is what the word signature is referring to. It's the signature of the creator. It says, I've created these patterns. Now there's a law that will fall into place. And everything that is natural in this realm will follow these patterns. And we could see these signatures here. So imagine you're just laying down on your back, and up from your navel, your umbilical, you have your umbilical cord going straight up, and there's the canopy above you. An angel looking over you as you are the rooted part of the earth manifested here. We see this is Yggdrasil, the ash tree, which we'll get to in another episode, but same idea. Your central axis, you have your plane of inertia here, which is where all life can exist, and all of the movement and motion, magnetic movement and motion that keeps everything nice and stable in the center here. Representing in the center there, that's Mount Meru. So there's all kinds of representations of the central pillar. They could be mounds, mountains. We're going to get to one that's kind of shaped like this later, but certainly trees. That's the point of this, if you haven't got to now. Now this is a market in somewhere in South Asia, maybe India, I guess. And another example of another tree that we're going to talk about someday. This is the Bodhi tree. And the Bodhi tree has not just got cultural significance and religious significance because it's a sacred tree. It's a sacred center. It represents the psychopomp kind of mercurial energy that comes down from the heavens and enlightens those that I guess subscribe to the spiritual teachings, right? But it also is a center, as in the center of a market, which also has this mercurial transaction, the moving of goods and services. You have the farmer from far away coming towards the center of town, setting up their little stall, having somebody from another side of the city come and exchange goods and services here right underneath the tree. very often in the idea of the world tree, are we going to have these community fractalized aspects here. Here's another one. Christmas tree. I believe this is Kansas City, Missouri. People will come and gather around in the wintertime for observing with merriment and tradition and connection to each other the lighting of this central pillar, this central axis, and what that represents. It's more than just decorating a tree and offering light in the wintertime. There's something more magnetic that draws us to that. I was just speaking with a friend yesterday and talking about how, isn't it funny that you can just put a piece of walnut or a milled piece of walnut or a milled piece of like maple or spalted maple or something that's nice looking, and you just put it in a room. You know, it doesn't have to be a countertop or anything like that. It just put something like that in the room and watch people just come over and touch it. It's not even hippie. It's not even like hippie to caress a nice piece of wood, even though if you think about it, it kind of is, right? It's just natural. We're drawn to these things because they have a magnetic power to them. So that's why today I'm going to start back in ancient Greece, and we're going to go to the cliffs of Delphi and even before that, and beyond that. And we're going to talk about bay leaf, Laurus nobilis, as a representation of the world tree. Now, that's a little tricky here for me. Maybe not for you, but here's my trick that I'm kind of doing to myself. Every month in every astrological sign, because I teach a lot of astrological herbalism. This is something that I find very easy to comprehend, is herbalism with more and more and more context, especially foundational context, so that one can arrive at their own conclusions with the foundational principles. And so if we have a foundational principle of astrology, and we start here in the heart of the lion of Leo, now, and moving on to, let's see, the next tree, which would be Virgo, and so on and so on. Now, I'm not talking about the zodiac. I'm not talking about the actual, if we can make a representation of that, I'm not talking about the spinning part that goes around. I want to focus on that central pillar. Okay, so I'm not putting this in a heliocentric aspect. I'm playing around with it though, because I like the backdrop of the stage that is behind that central pillar. And the backdrop behind the stage of the central pillar, this unmoving, immovable monad that's always there on the stage, is right now the Leo the lion. Leo the lion rules the heart. It is a fire sign. It is the fixed fire that you gather around, right? It's not the match and the spark, the sulfuric spark of Aries. And it's not that wildfire that's always looking for a new fuel like Sagittarius. It's the fire that everyone wants to come around, warm their hands up, cook their marshmallows on, tell stories, play their guitar around, laugh around, feel the light and the warmth from their faces, know that there's safety and security. Moving on, as the sun moves on in its course around the world tree, in its elliptical course around the world tree, we'll get to plants. We'll get to some trees that are more representative of some of the other signs. Like when we move to Virgo, I'm thinking about the beech tree and how it's related to books. I'm thinking about the oak tree, Quercus, and how that might have a relationship with Aquarius, or oak tree as the king, the kingly tree sacred to Jupiter. So that might make a lot more sense, and Saturn holding its leaves might make a lot more sense at the winter solstice as we move from Sagittarius into Capricorn. So having all those aspects, I really like playing around with that because I think it'll be really fun to explore the trees in this context. But I just wanted to make that clear that this is a geocentric cosmology here. And it's fun. It's really fun to have these different backdrops. And as a, I don't know, just a way of interpreting and finding a little bit more inspiration, putting a little bit more context of this. So Leo, the lion, showy, glowy, champion. All of these words, I think, have a really great relationship to the bay leaf. I would say the bay leaf is a very Leo herb. I would say for sure it is a fire, is ruled by the sun, and is a fiery herb. There's some names that come to mind with bay leaf that's relationship to other words, like, for example, the botanical name Laurus nobilis. We'll have Laura. We got Lori, Scandinavia, Lars, Celtic, Leary, even Hillary, L'Oreal, like the makeup company or whatever. And yeah, Hillary, I think this is cool. Let me see here if I can do a little share screen. I'm going to try to share this. Can you see that? Hilarity. Is that working? No. And here we are. Hilarity. I don't have two monitors, so not yet. Mirth, merriment, gaiety. Hilarity differs from joy. Joy is, the root of joy is jovial, Jove, Jupiter. The latter, excited by good news or prosperity. Joy is excited by good news and prosperity. And hilarity is social pleasure, drinking, which rouses the animal spirits. Very relevant here. Coming back. All right. Hopefully that's shared. Let's see here. Let's see some other words. Laureate, like a poet laureate or the Nobel laureate, somebody that's been somebody that's got an outstanding achievement in their creative pursuits. And I think creative pursuits, creativity is the word for that. Laur, L-A-U-R, is a Celtic word meaning green. And so bay leaf is an evergreen. As an evergreen, there's a lot of other symbolic nature with evergreens too. Forever alive. I think of green as vital. Also, if we overlap our chakras here, we got the heart area, which is green. So forever heart giving, right? And that's there's also the relationship right there with Leo. Something that's always alive means it's always providing, the air that we breathe. It's always receiving the air that we give. There's a relationship with everlasting life and almost like an immortal aspect with something that's evergreen. So that would be if bay leaf grows in your zone. It doesn't grow in my zone. I'm up here in Wisconsin, but and then also the word nobilis. It's pretty easy there. Noble and all of that. Okay. Back to. So a couple places to start with the bay leaf. Let's start with the Rider-Waite deck. And here in the major arcana, we have the World card. The World is this, I don't know, ascended Aphroditic figure here, moving up and down into the air, very pillar-like, right? Circumvented, I guess, or surrounded by this wreath of laurels. There's laurels twine X'd at the top, and we have the tetramorph representation here, the 4 royal stars, Aquarius, there's Scorpio, there's Leo the lion, and Taurus the bull down there. And what is the World card? Well, it's the last card of the major arcana. It's the completion. What does it mean when you get to the end? It means that you're at the beginning of something new. So the idea with laurels is that you could celebrate this victory and look past at all of the achievements that you've got, but don't be resting on your laurels, as the term suggests. That once there's something of achievement, you must continue to achieve and move on through the fool's journey, the hero's journey. That's what the world card represents. And so symbolic of that is this mantle of the laurel, of the wreath of laurel, which is celebration and that achievement. Here over on the left side, we have the Six of Wands, fellow riding in, straight up posture, he just won, he just achieved something, and everyone knows it, and they're all offering him laurels. Yay, you did it, buddy. Over here on the right, the Seven of Cups. This is the make up your mind card. What's it gonna be, buddy? What's it gonna be? You gotta choose. It could be any of these things. It could be Medusa. It could be the snake. It could be the dragon. It could be a wreath of laurels. See that over there on the bottom row? It could be a wreath of laurels. You can't know. You're in the shadow world right now. Make up your mind. Everything's smoky. It's hard to tell. You have to make a decision. Decision means to cut off other possibilities. Decide. And once you do that, then you're on your path. So Bay Laurel associated with victory, with completion, and with Apollo. So Apollo, here's the story of Apollo. Okay. I found this really cool relief print here. And good thing that my wife is a linguist and also Italian, so she could translate this very ancient Italian down here. It's not actual Italian. It's something other ancient here. So I'm going to enlarge this so I can read it here. It says, Uccide Febo. So Apollo kills this python. So Apollo, in this particular context here, is named as Febo. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? We have PHE, like, I don't know. So what Apollo does is first thing he does is puts an arrow through the python, kills the python. Back it up a little bit. Apollo is a really interesting person here, or whatever he is. Let me bring up let me bring up something that I think is interesting. Let's look at open up a new tab here. What is Apollo, the god of? Don't hate me because I'm looking at Wikipedia here. I have another reference of Wikipedia later, but I think this is really interesting. Okay, Apollo is this is the mainstream. This is what they're telling us in the mainstream. So I think it's worth noting and worth looking at what other people say here. Apollo has been recognized as the god of archery. So that's where he gets his bow, the god of archery, right? He's the god of music. He has the lyre, the lyre, and dance, truth. So he's all about shooting things, singing, having a good time, dancing around. Truth and prophecy, which is a reference to the oracles aspect. Healing and disease. He is the god of healing, and his son was Asclepius. Oh yeah, and the sun. And poetry and more. What? Okay, the sun, the light of the world, the thing that we can't live without or doesn't provide any life on this realm here without the sun. Oh yeah, let's see here. Archery, music, dance, truth, prophecy. Oh, and the sun. That's very interesting. Why isn't he the most recognized as the god of sun and light? We can explore that some other time, I suppose. But here in this relief, I don't know if he earned that yet. See, I'm trying to make I guess I'll hint at the case that perhaps this solar cosmology usurped some of the deities that were in place and the figures that were in place, and kind of ascribed them to these roles, even though they had their own roles already. So everyone already knew that Apollo was kind of a sporty jock. He was into bow shooting and arrows, and competition and things like that. So he went into the garden where Gaia she had a whole garden set up there in Delphi, and she had her son Python there, and she had all of her daughters that were the nymphs there, and all kinds of stuff going on there. And Apollo comes, and the first thing he does is like, oh, nice, sweet place. I'll be taking it from here. Kills the python, is like reeling in his victory, like he just won the game or something like that. He's like, yeah, it's awesome, because he's kind of a jock, and he is a jock. And he's like walking around, and there he is in the upper right here in the clouds, and he's looking at the cherub that's known as Eros. And so he says to Eros, he's like, wow, you're pretty chubby for an archer. I don't even know how you can aim with that chubby fingers, and you can't even probably see through your chubby cheeks. Just might as well just give me your bow, because you're probably a worthless archer. That's how arrogant he is being portrayed in the story. And Eros took offense with that. It's kind of like the Cupid figure here. So he takes two arrows out. One of them is gold, and one of them is lead. And he shoots the gold one into Apollo. Now, the gold one, if you know anything about alchemical metals, gold is related to the sun. And so maybe this is where we get Apollo and its solar aspect. I don't know. Maybe it was already there. I'm not an expert in Greek mythology, so just pointing out some things that I think are interesting. So he sends that golden arrow to Apollo, and when it hits him, it's going to make him fall in love with the first thing that he sees, or the first woman, I guess. And then he takes a lead arrow, and you can see over here in the upper left. And it says here in the description that he shoots it into the word swar. What's the word? Sware? Which is, I can't read it, but it's the word in a modern Italian for nuns. And it's referring to these nymphs. They're not nuns, but I think it's interesting. It's not a one-for-one relationship, but I believe that the actual reference is somebody who chooses the mantle of chastity. And that's what the lead arrow that hits this woman, or this nymph named Daphne, right through the heart, and that appalls her. So lead is related to Saturn. It's an alchemical metal, and it makes her appalled when she sees Apollo, but it makes him lust for her. So he chases her and chases her and chases her. He wants her. He wants to, I don't know, do whatever gods do when they get what they want. And so worth also noting that Daphne is the daughter of Gaia, and the daughter who's the mother, and then their father was a river. Can't remember the name of the river. Here's a famous Renaissance painting of Apollo in his red sash chasing Daphne in her virginal white. And almost got you there. Tag, you're it. Look at him. He's also glowing. She's not. And her, yeah, it looks like her fingers are starting to turn into a tree. So this is what happens. She's about to be, captured, I guess, by Apollo for his second victory of the day. And she cries out to her father, which is the river, says, "Help me, Dad." And he turns her into the Bay Laurel tree to preserve her chastity. Here's another this is a really famous statue that's in Rome. And as you can see here in this statue, she's turning into the Bay Laurel tree, and her legs are becoming it too. And so she will never be defiled by Apollo. That's the idea, at least. But what Apollo does is he says, dang it. Well, I guess I'll just take the tree anyway. And so he said, this will be sacred to me. So because this got been shot by an arrow, I don't know, some kind of magic, he just can't help it anyway. It's not like he's like, oh, dang it, well, next one. He's still in love with this figure here. So he takes the laurel tree and he crowns himself with it and says, this is my crown. And actually, I did conquer this tree after all. He uses the stalks and some of the tree to make a makeshift, fort kind of temple. That's the story about Apollo's first temple. He made it himself like a tree fort out of this tree. And then eventually, he got some of his cult followers to make a stone temple out of stone and whatnot, granite. So that's the Apollyon story. Here we have these representations of the laurel wreaths depicted throughout history. So just like Apollo used the laurel wreath for his victory and to show his mantle as, crowning himself, this is something that we find from Caesar. Here's Julius Caesar, depiction of him and a relief of the coin as well. And this is also called the civic laurel. So there's the civic laurel, which is the public side. And I think this is really interesting too, because I believe that Apollo represents the public side, the sun, the light, the brightness, what's shining, what you see, as opposed to his twin sister, Artemis, who is the wild and the darkness and the moon and the eyes that you see in the woods between the trees. Okay, so in order to get a civic, this is like the Congressional Medal, by the way, and this is all very civic. Everything about the laurel wreath is very much public, in the public domain. In order to get one back in these days, this would be in Rome, one would have to fight a battle, maintain their position in battle, save a fallen soldier, bring him back to safety, and something like that. It's kind of like the Congressional Medal of Honor. So, wow, you did it. You saved your friend, you pulled him back, and we were able to fix his legs or whatever. And now, as a thank you, we're going to give you the Congressional Medal of Honor. And except that when somebody got this laurel wreath, it was like, it's a real nice station. They would put the wreath on, and as so-and-so with the wreath on walks into the room, everyone would rise because they would know that this is a very dignified and important person. And there's degrees of laurel wreaths, by the way. They're not all bay laurels. Some were olive and some were oak. And the oak ones were the highest ones. That was the stately king, the king of them all kind of tree is the oak, for some cultures here. And today, this is my wife, Serena. So in Italy, when you achieve a high degree, this is a picture of her on the day that she earned her master's degree. And she's Italian, still practiced in Italy today. When you earn a high degree of your master's degree or your doctorate, every June you'll see people going around town in the city squares with their wreaths of laurels. This was picked from the garden where she lives or grew up. She lives with me now, and then also the red sash, as I showed you in a previous slide. And so it's not very, very common to see people just celebrating like that. Here in America, you'll see like houses with balloons out front, and that's your, we graduated party. Over there, it's all about the achievement. It's about mimicking this ritual in the public of victory. Okay, I know what you're thinking. You're seeing a couple pillars. You're seeing the checkered Masonic board. That's okay. I know this is just the church in the town that she's from. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And there's the lions out front. Just a little Leo backdrop, and my beautiful wife. Okay, here's something that I think is here's a little interesting theory that I got some hints from another herbalist named Kathy Skipper, who is an herbalist that is living in France. And she's not French, but I believe she's British, but she lives in France, and she's an aromatherapist. And so she's really into all this stuff. And she suggests that the laurel of the myth that I was just describing has more in common with spurge laurel, which is called Daphne laureola. Laureola. Daphne laureola. And it's neither a spurge nor is it a laurel. It's not at all related to the Bay Laurel plant. Okay, but it has 4-petal flowers, unlike the Bay Laurel, which has, and they're little creamy clusters, really similar, very similar looking leaves, but 4 petals, which is more representative of earth, of the base chakra is a 4-petaled flower. So this would be more represented of a nymph, I believe. And also, here, let's see the next slide. Look at this picture. What do you notice about it? This plant grows in the shade. It grows in the woods, and it grows by the river. Unlike Bay Laurel, which would not grow in the shade, nor would it grow by a river. Bay Laurel likes dry, sandy soil and the sun. And wouldn't it be interesting if Daphne actually did get away? She did escape and preserve her chastity after all. And in his arrogance and drunken stupor of victory, did Apollo grab the bay laurel tree by the way, this plant here, Daphne laureola, doesn't have a smell. It's not aromatic like our bay leaves are. And it would be very inconspicuous. It's hiding from the sun. So wouldn't that be interesting? Here, take a look. This is Daphne, the Daphne tree. This is Laurus nobilis. Very similar looking, right? You can see that the bay leaf has more of a translucent look to it. It's got these veins that come up from the center, as opposed to this Daphne tree here. So yeah, what if she did get away, and all this time he's been crowning himself with the wrong plant? Huh. It's a funny little twist. I like to think about that. And let me see here. So before I get a little bit more into, I want to talk about the medicine. I'm definitely going to talk about the medicine. I'm going to talk about the how we know bay leaf and what we do with it, and how it might be representative of a great medicine to enter into our lives. I really do. I have a lot to say about that, but I want to keep going on this world tree topic here, because I got a couple slides here. So this is a Roman picture from a vase, I believe, from here's Apollo over here on the right with his crown of laurels. And after he built his temple, he learned the art of prophecy from the Melissae, which are the bee nymphs, where we get the word Melissa, which is where we get the word Melissa officinalis, plant named bee balm. Sorry, a plant named lemon balm. And Melissae, mel, honey. And anyway, lemon balm as a medicinal plant. And I know that I'm going to talk a lot about bay as a medicinal plant, but they have a lot of similar characteristics. They're both very, very good for clearing the psychic space, clearing the fog, brain fog, and melancholy. The melancholic humors, the melancholic vapors of the heart doth the lemon balm melt. And in the way that when the sun hits the sidewalk on a foggy day, it lifts the fog. So there's this idea with Melissa officinalis, and bay leaf, which also has a lot of these similar qualities of clarity from a physical aspect, in the way that our bodies can feel clear of the heaviness of digestion. Clarity from an emotional aspect in the way that our heart feels open and warm and radiant. From a mental aspect where I can focus, my thoughts are clear right now. This is a great medicine of both Melissa officinalis lemon balm and bay leaf for mental acuity, focus. I'm going to get to that more. And maybe even let's just keep going on that thread a step further into the spiritual realm and say spiritually clarifying. Excuse me. So here's a really cool relief with after he learned this art of prophecy. Some attribute it to the Melisai, some attribute it to him kind of sucking up the soul essence of the python. Whatever it was, now all of a sudden Apollo has this, he is the god of truth and prophecy, and he uses it is channeled through Apollo, this art of prophecy through his priestess, which is known as the Oracle of Delphi, which is where his temple is. And the Oracle of Delphi was a woman that was often depicted on a tripod, which I think is very interesting. And there she is holding a bay leaf as well. And notice this single pole, central pillar, moving between these two, creating that toroidal type shape. Once again, that relationship of that centripetal moving out, sucking that prophecy back up again, moving out like a torus. Okay. Then we have her holding this. She's always depicted kind of holding a dish or looking into what looks like a kind of a bowl that's kind of flat. Interesting there, right? At the center, at this kind of area, which would also be the plane of inertia, where you can contain all of life. She's looking into this, and that's where she finds her prophecy. Here's another representation. Pretty famous painting. And what I like about this one is that this tripod that she's sitting on actually has legs. They're feet. And I think one of the things, okay, this whole thing to me, the way that this is shaped is very polar, central pillar look to it. She's not sprawled out. It's not a big landscape. It's got a vertical look to this whole painting here. And so here she is with the dish right in the center of the painting again, holding up all of the waters surrounded by the edges of the dish right there. There's the three legs, and let's just look real quick here. And I'm going to go to, okay, I know that you see that, but we have, I hope that you can see this. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so this is the three-legged flag that is represented of the Isle of Man and the flag of Sicily. So really interesting side weave on this here, but what these three legs could also represent are the Ursa Major, the path of Ursa Major moving around that central pillar here. Now, if you took one of those legs, you see the star, and how this looks like a dipper shape right here. It's pretty interesting. So, what the three-legged Triskelion can represent is also a three-parted season. I think that that's what this painting is showing here, is that this is a time of the three seasons, the Fasti calendar of 9 months before it was usurped into a 4 season calendar: spring, summer, fall, and winter. So I think this is just too cool, but logo of, there's a band from the 70s, a punk band. Called the Circle Jerks. This is their colors. Look at this. Same color pattern. Circle. Jerk. Jerk? What does a jerk do? It's somebody that comes in and does something you don't want them to do. We have the 3 legs here. There's a 3, 1, 2, 3. As if it's the Triskelion, as if it's that fasty calendar, and then the usurping of the calendar into a 4. See that? There's that 4 his leg is making right there. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things, but I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's cool, worth noting. And I'm going to go back here. Okay, so there's the oracle. Once again, what else do we got about her, besides the 3 legs? We got this gas that's coming up right here. The smoke. What is it the smoke of? Well, some say it's the smoke of the bay leaf. There's some sort of like, it's the smoke of this is very python looking crack too, this fissure that's going through the earth. So maybe it's the spirit of the python. Whatever it is, it's showing here that there's some sort of influence of the smoke. So I was just wondering, what does the mainstream say about this? Let me just go back to my, there was a New York Times article. New York Times. Yeah, here it is. I got it. Oh my gosh. Okay, I got it. That's not going to let me look. All right. Anyway, the New York Times. Not that I give any credence to their thought processes or anything like that, but they're like, we got it figured out. We got a bunch of experts on the case. We got a geologist and a chemist and another scientist, an archaeologist, and they all came together and they figured it out. There is no magic at all. silly ancients. They called this stuff magic. Can you believe it? What it actually is an ethylene gas. They called it ethylene. And so they were trying to replicate that, like maybe they couldn't find it. There was residue of this and there's residue of that. And so that points to ethylene. And basically what they're saying is that she's high on some sort of natural gas that's coming up from the earth. So in other words, like it's the opposite of clarity. It's like the mind is dull and she's sniffing like the gasoline from the Sheol or something like that. Who knows what's going on, but something's coming up from the bottom of the tree and the compost from the bottom of the world tree, and she's smelling it and it's making her into altered states of vision. But it ain't magic, right? That's what they're saying. And it's definitely not, it's definitely replicable by our experts here at the New York Times. So that's what they say. And that's also worth noting. We got another famous piece of art. Take a look at this one. We have there's a lot of serpent symbolism here too, and this on the rugs and the reliefs on the wall and whatnot. We got 2 neophytes of some sort, they have yet to be castrated, but they're offering, maybe they already were, but they're offering, maybe they're just delegates from the city, because the other thing about the New York Times article that reminded me was that there was a famous quote where one of Socrates's contemporaries or something like that, he goes to the Oracle of Delphi to get some wisdom, and the oracle says, Socrates is the wisest person in all of Greece. So that's one of the famous things that the Oracle of Delphi was saying. And if you can read an article from the New York Times, you could tell when they have like a smugness to them, by the adjectives that they use. And you could tell when they have like a pride just by the placement of the sentences and stuff like that. And so they were very proud of the one thing that I felt like that they wanted to show about the Oracle of Delphi is that their subscription to the Socratic philosophy, which is, anyway, that's a whole different topic. But so we have they're offering these sprigs of bay right here, and this woman, look at her, she's being restrained by these other priests. There's a little newbie over here. There's a guy with his notebook, and he's scrawling. He's like, okay, I'm getting this down. Are you getting that? Yes, I'm getting it. And she looks sick. She's got darkness under her eyes. She's looking off. She looks tortured. And if she's breathing some gas or something like that from the ground, it's not affecting these men. So there's another suggestion here, and that is that while bay leaf is associated with clarity and with this process of divination, the oracle wasn't consuming bay leaf, because none of this is consistent with the consumption of bay leaf. Bay leaf is something that makes people healthier. It makes people brighter. It makes their face shine, and it makes their digestion shine. Rids the body of parasites. It would provide truth for this situation. And so one suggestion is that she's actually, look at this over here, by the way, this stone to her left here, this egg-shaped stone. We're going to get to that here in a second. Oleander. This is what there are some accounts suggesting that this is something that they were giving to the Oracle of Delphi. It's similar looking. It is similar looking to the bay leaf, and it's similar in that it becomes a hedgerow, and it's an evergreen tree and everything like this, but it is a poisonous tree. It's poison, kill you dead if you use too much of it. And that was the thing about the oracles too, is that they're like, oh shoot, we gave that one too much oleander, I guess, and then they died. So we got to get a new oracle, and here's the new one. Get her drugged. These are the stories. I can't verify them, but I think there's way more to the surface of what the oracle is than just the myth. And I think that there might be some components of, look at this. She's being restrained. Looks like she's even being held against her will. She's possessed. She's definitely not well. That's not the sign of somebody consuming a bay leaf. After all is said and done, and they closed the temple doors of the Oracle of Delphi for good after the Christians come in, and they just lose their funding or something like that. They're no longer supplying cryptic information to the public, to the civic public as an organization. They take away some of the artifacts, and they find this. This is the Omphalos stone. Omphalos. Omphalos. So OM. The word Omphalos stone means navel. And this is, to me, the place that I've been trying to arrive at this whole presentation, to talk about how bay leaf is symbolic of the central pillar. Not as the tree, but as the tree is something that is showing what they are really trying to show here in the temple of Delphi, is what this stone represents, the navel, the center of the world. That's what this stone is. So one of the legends is that Zeus, he's got an eagle on both arms. He's at the edge of the world simultaneously, lets off both eagles and says, fly towards the center. And where they crossed was here. And so they erected a Omphalos stone, and they said, this is the center. This is the center of the world. This is the navel. The word Omphalos, we have Om, which is, we got the relationship to womb. We got the relationship to, and then also the, in Vedic, Om, they say as almost like a pejorative, people who navel gaze, somebody who just sits in with their legs crossed, and they're focusing on their breath, and they're navel gazing, saying the word Om. How funny is that? They're talking about, and here I am. After all, the pejorative is, oh, all you do is navel gaze. You don't actually do anything beneficial. And yet here I am gazing at this navel and hopefully in hopes that it is of use somehow, at least to benefiting my cosmology and my medicine making. So here's the central axis, and then so Om, womb, as in umbrella, or even umbria, but also umbilico. So the umbilical cord, umbilical cord. So there's the navel, and then phallus. So basically, we could, even though this word means navel, what it's actually referring to in my mind is the center point within the undefined womb, the central pillar, the phallus within the whole, the pole within the whole, the 1 and the 0. Om phallus, symbolic of the central axis, that world tree. So also depicted here, it looks like interesting reliefs on these. I see a couple of things. I see the melissae, the bees. They look like little bees. It looks like a beehive. This looks like the beehives from the old days too. They used to build these beehives like that, like this stone over here. That's the old beehive shape. Okay, so there's the melissae once again, but then I also see the tree of life. If you were to take this pattern, the tree of life, which is a whole bunch of circles and the vescopices that are formed within it. So take your central, you take your mother figure, you take your father figure, and then when you pull them apart, you have the divine child right there in the middle. That's the flower of life pattern. Now, if I were to just imagine this flower of life like overlapping, like as if you were to take this flower of life pattern two-dimensionally and just drape it over this Omphalos stone, that's what it kind of looks like to me. Okay, I wanted to show you about Delphi in America. Here's Delphi, Indiana. Population, 2,000 people. Sorry, almost 3,000. Really small town in the middle of nowhere. And I have a lot of connection with this place here, actually. This isn't far from where I was born. Down the wall, right up the Wabash River from Tippecanoe County, which is where I get the name of my business, Tippecanoe Herbs, from where my placenta was buried, I suppose. I hope. Let's see here, Delphi, Indiana High School. If you know anything about, Indiana, you know that one of the biggest things in Indiana that people look forward to is boys basketball, high school basketball. And wouldn't you know it, that if you went to Delphi, a boys basketball game, you would see that the Oracle of Delphi is the mascot of the boys basketball team. My dad lived in Delphi for a long time. And when I would go visit him, he was the writer of the articles for the boys basketball team or men's basketball team, or however you want to say it, the high school boys basketball team. So we'd follow around and go to all these games, and it's quite the spectacle in Indiana. Like, little gymnasium in the middle of a cornfield, population 3,000 people, and you would have 2,500 people there, it seems like. I mean, it's like packed because it's the big thing to do. So he would follow around. He was the writer of the community paper of Delphi Times or whatever it was called for the oracles. So that was a fun thing. That was a hit, just having a press pass and following around the oracles of Delphi. And let's see here, on Delphi on the map. We're looking at the high school, but right down, not far from the, look at the layers here. Not far from the high school is I'm going to zoom out. Hello. Okay, there we go. How about this? How about we just do this? Directions. There's an interesting place here related to prophecy. Prophets Rock. So Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi, would be in a cave on the cliff. And the word Delphi even has a relationship to dolphins. But here, just down the Wabash River, follow this Wabash River around, whoop, and you get down to Prophet's Rock. Let's take a look at Prophet's Rock here. This is a power place for me. This is some place that I visit a lot when I go through Indiana, which is often actually. And I do my meditating here. I go up there. Prophet's Rock is famous because this is the place. Let's see if we could read this inscription here. It says, it's going to be hard to read. Basically says this is the place where the prophet sat up there on that cliff. There's an Indian named Prophet who was the brother of Tecumseh. And look at this marking on the stone, by the way. Pretty interesting. Omphalos looking. But he sat up here and sang to encourage the Indians into the battle of November 7th, 1811. That's also known as the Battle of Tippecanoe, which is where Tyler's forces, under the leadership of William Henry Harrison, the general of the territory of Indiana, they were ambushed by this band, and they ended up slaughtering them eventually, and they won the battle. And that's where we get the presidential slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. But Prophet's Rock and the Prophet and all of that was a really interesting piece of American history. But the brother of Tecumseh, there was a time where a confederation was forming to resist the expansion of movement west of the federal government, I guess you could say. And it was a formidable gathering. And Tecumseh was off on a diplomatic mission to seal the deal with probably some of the tribes that would have been really instrumental in resisting that. But while he was away, his brother, Prophet, jumped the gun and sang his warriors into battle after seeing a vision. So I don't think he was under the right influence, maybe. The vision was that the white man's bullets would not hurt him. So what would have disturbed that? I wonder. And then one last thing before we get into bay leaf too. I want to show you this. This is a Wikipedia page for Lauraceae. Lauraceae is the family, the plant family. So in the taxonomical classification, you have your genus, you have the genus and species. So everything that's, starting with species, that's the lowest, and then you go up to the genus, and then the next step up is the family. And I really think it's important when a plant is the head of the family, is named after the family. So there's the Bay Laurel as the delegate of the Lauraceae family and other plants. So another example of this is the rose family. The rose family plants There's the rose in the rose family. There's raspberry, there's agrimony, there's strawberry, there's apple, crataegus, hawthornberry, all kinds of plants in the rose family. But when they move to when they petition their leader to go as a delegate towards the council at the center of the earth, to the creator, for example, in my mind, they send their senator, they send their elected official, they send the head of the family. And that makes a lot of sense when we're talking about the laurel family, because it does have a real Senate vibe. It has the vibe of the delegate in general. So not only is the plant the head of the family, that would go to the delegate at the council of the center of the earth to petition to the creator to whatever, but it is also the delegate's plant in general. So what are some other members of the Lauraceae? Before we talk about some medicine of the Bay Laurel, I want to say that all of these have a similar relationship to some of the medicine here. Cinnamon. And now look at this. We're familiar with the bark of cinnamon, but have you ever seen the leaf of cinnamon? How does that, I know it's kind of blurry. There we go. I know. How does that look like bay leaf too? Doesn't that look like a nice evergreen that's never going to deconstruct in your soup? Camphorous and, highly aromatic. I think that any of these plants that we're talking about here can have a relationship with this, the Apollo character, in their own little delegation. Lindera. This is the spice bush in America. This particular one, Melissafolia. There's Melissa again, which means leaves that look like lemon balm. That's what Melissafolia means. And Lindera is the spice bush. Another common spice bush is Lindera benzoin. Then that's the typical North American spice bush. We have Lindera triloba, which means 3 lobes or trident-like. We have and then here's one I think is really cool. Avocados. Yeah. How Apollocado. How exotic. Avo. AVO. There's the P to V switch. This is green language stuff. I'm not making an etymological claim here. And cado means to fall in Spanish, but the word avocado actually means advocate. It comes from the Nahuatl word for advocate, or Mexican word for advocate. So interesting, because there's another delegative aspect, advocating. Look at those leaves, very similar to the bay leaf. I don't think that they're aromatic. I don't think that they have that flavor that the bay leaf has, but they have a very similar looking fruit, except it's much bigger, much more meat on that fruit. So interesting that the avocado would be like the jungle delegate. If you think about just movies or plays that have, thinking of what's that one with the panther, the Black Panther guy, and then they have all of the different tribes, but then there's the king of them all, right? And so this would be like one of the old jungle tribe version of bay leaf, but when they got to send their delegate, they're going to send the king. Cool. So yeah, let's get into some bay leaf stuff, shall we? All right. Before I do, I want to show you something here. Chipotle bay leaf. Okay, this really brings to mind this. I think of a lot of things when I think of bay leaf, but this is funny. This is from 2017, and what happened here? Did I click on it? Okay. So Chipotle in the news. Say what you will about Chipotle, it's fine. Why? Well, because they cook their rice and their beans with bay leaf, and people are, what does it say? Losing their mind. And can you believe it? There is a leaf. Oh my God, there's a leaf here. Never mind this chunk of corn or this other thing that came from a plant here, this tomato or this guacamole or even these other small chunks of leaf, which is cilantro. I'm talking about this whole leaf. Oh, gross. Um, did I just find another one? Oh, yuck. And one of these replies is like, I don't know how I feel about it. One of these replies is like, it's not an outside leaf, it's a bay leaf. So I guess what I wanted to show here is the real divorcing from how truly sad the standard American diet is, and how divorced people are from cooking and from nature, and how bay leaf kind of gets shown in the light in news for the clarity of what it is. Like, people cook with bay leaves. How could you not know that that's a bay leaf, right? um, and so yeah, that kind of thing. All right. Anyway, all right, back on track here. I got a slide. All right, bay leaf symbology. What does this tree represent in a symbolic sense, in a medicinal sense? We could apply all of these words to this plant to these myths that we were talking about. We could apply this to the spiritual aspects that we could use in medicine. We could apply it to the emotional aspects, to our physical aspects when we call on this plant in our food. Okay, it's going to enhance prophecy. Burning of the bay leaf, that's one of an old-fashioned magic trick, I guess you could say. Take a bay leaf and you just burn it, and it gives you some clarity. I think it's a really nice smudge before a card reading, or looking at an astrological chart, for example, or even just knowing what your next move is. What am I going to do? Making your plan. For courage, summoning this Apollyon strength to face the public, to face something within yourself, to face the darkness within yourself. Victory. There's a different deity for victory, and it's Nike in the Greek pantheon. I always think that because I say the word nice. I say that a lot. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if I'm summoning victory when I say that. That's all right. With wisdom, with clarity, with wealth. And I think that has a lot to do more with, I define wealth in different ways than other people. So I think it has to do with the personal definition of wealth. What is wealth to you? To me, wealth is health. To me, wealth is family. To me, wealth is time to explore things that bring meaning to my life. To others, it's evergreen. You know what I mean? And an honor. Now, it doesn't seem very honorable. I know from the story I was telling you about Apollo, none of that seemed kind of honorable, did it? And I believe that, and I haven't got to this point yet, but I believe that there's a big inversion. I've hinted at it, but let's move on to the medicine of bay leaf. All right. Memory enhancement. All right. Everyone who's cooked with bay leaf knows, I'll skip ahead for a second to the digestive aid. Everyone knows that bay leaf, you put bay leaf into the food. I saw a skit recently on social media or something where the guy was like, what does bay leaf do? And it's like, you put it in your food and it just makes it like a You couldn't really describe it, you know. That's kind of like, I think a lot of people do think that way. But when you're cooking with bay leaf, you're getting all these benefits. Okay, so a lot of people are cooking with bay leaf, and they don't realize that it's just there for that flavor. They're also improving their memory. Now, this is embedded in the myth of the oracle. This is embedded in the ability to prophesize and to see things for what they are and to recall things as well. All of that, we could consider that ancient knowledge, time-honored wisdom. But if you need some science, I mean, like real science, bro, to back that up, it's pretty easy to find several peer-reviewed, published articles on Google Scholar. They're really into it lately because bay leaf is neuroprotective. It's going to be really, really helpful for people who have mental degeneration, from prevention of Alzheimer's to treatment of Alzheimer's, and as well as dementia and all these other things. Now, I think that these are multifaceted, states of dis-ease. And there's a lot more to say about this. I mean, the things that people are cooking with, or cooking upon, the heavy metals that are in your diet, telling the truth in general, all these things I think are really, really important to how the energy in our mind, if it has to go through tangles or if it's a straight shot, if there's what kind of crud is crudding it up. Okay, but there's a lot of things that can help it in the herbal world, and bay leaf is one of them. And those who practice the sorcery of pharmacy are always into finding out new ways to help sell people with supplements and whatnot from the diseases that are made from some of the effects, we could say side effects, of the medicines that they've given people. I'll use air quotes for medicine. All right, memory enhancement. This is awesome. Take some bay leaf for your mind. Get it in. Put two in your burrito bowl next time. One extra bay leaf, please, Chipotle. Okay, mood brightening, dispelling of gloom. Yeah, this is the wheelhouse of the Leo backdrop. Once again, that melancholic vapors that descend upon the heart. Which way is my path forward? Where is the light ahead of me? Everything's kind of foggy. I don't even know what my purpose is. I don't know if I feel like getting out of bed. These kind of things that one might say. Bay leaf for that. Very brightening to the mood. Apollonic brightening. Shining. Apollo wasn't just dancing and music and fun and hilarity. It was also like beauty, brightness. As a digestive aid, bay leaf is very aromatic. Now, if you rub bay leaf and you smell it, it's slightly aromatic. It smells, yeah, I can smell that. But its aroma is trapped so deep inside of the leaf that's why you can make a broth with all of your veggie scraps and they all turn into, goo. You could cook that broth in a crock pot for 24, 48 hours. All of your stuff turns to goo. But what doesn't? The bay leaf, because it's so rigid and strong and it's fortified with all of these volatile oils. So things that are aromatic and have volatile oils are always going to dispel congestion. They're going to move stuff. They're going to move that congestion of the mind. They're going to move that foggy congestion of the emotions in the heart. And they're going to move that stagnant congestion that comes with eating a big old heavy bowl of, veggie stew. Or whatever you're eating. And so that's what it is. In the word in herbalism, we have a word called carminative. And carminative means it's an aromatic for the digestive system. So that dispels gas, it dispels bloating, it dispels cramping related to the digestion, or that just aromatic quality. So that's said about the plant having such strong volatile oils, and I mean tons of strong oils. If you were to, this is the reason why it's put in whole, because if you grind it up into a powder, it's just like overwhelming to the flavor. And if you break it up and crush it up, and sometimes you forget and you you hit your soup with an immersion blender and you're like, oh no, there's like chunks of bay leaf in here. Well, it's not ruined, but it's just a texture thing, but it really does release a lot of those oils. So that's why, just like a clove and some other things that people cook with, where they put them in, or like a clove of garlic. The idea of you put it in and you're going to take it out again. And the reason why is because they're strong. They're really strong, and those oils are suspended in there. Also, like garlic, it's a great circulatory supporter. And this is again, Leo, the heart of the lion that is moving the blood as well. It's related to the circulatory system. It's related to moving that fire energy through our body. And it's helping with the circulatory support through its great companionship against oxidative stress and whatnot. A lot of antioxidants, tons of them. It's a mucus buster. And this is kind of an old-fashioned topic, because back... Okay, am I here? Good. A mucus buster. Because back in time, there was an herbalist named Samuel Thompson, and Samuel Thompson in the Americas in the 1700s. And his whole form of medicine was like, it had a lot to do with purification. It had a lot to do with like improving the vitality of the fountain of your body. So you would take some cayenne, you would take some lobelia, and you would take something to break apart the mucus. So he saw, and this is a school that I've kind of, this is a school of vitality that I follow too. It's a little bit more sophisticated now, but it's all based on similar principles, which is we have our fountain, we have our vitality. All you got to do is get the fountain clean, and it's going to flow, and everything is going to heal based on flowing. And so back in time, there was also a spiritual context of like impurity and Puritanism and everything like that. And then today, there is just a lot of mucus forming foods from the processing of dairy and the processing of whatever, and the way that the gluten is consolidated now into the semolina wheats and whatnot. So there's a lot more mucus that's being formed just on the way that the standard American diet is. And there's some other practitioners, the late Dr. Sebi, who is, I don't know, he's pretty popular in my community. He's pretty popular among the African Americans, and I live in the city, so see a lot of people who are interested in the works of Dr. Sebi, work with a lot of people. And so Dr. Sebi's philosophy is all about busting up the mucus too, busting up the mucus and nourishing. And he has a very similar kind of quality of philosophy, which is akin to Samuel Thompson's, but with the addition of nutrition and adding mineral-rich herbs. And also, so in other words, bay leaf is a mucus buster in that way. We could say that you'll find a lot of stuff that'll say it's antibacterial and it's anti-viral and it's anti blah 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 and all these antis. Well, I think that's based on a flawed premise of germ theory, and I would like to recategorize that into this vitalist aspect, which I'm talking about here, and say that plants that are really high in aromatic oils that have this astringent action that can tone the circulatory system, that can tone the digestion, they actually encourage the proper formation of the microbes in the terrain, and they repel against and balance the ones that we don't want in those places. We wouldn't be able to survive if we had got rid of all of our yeast and fungus and stuff like that that's in our body. These things are there for a reason. They have a habitat to inhabit, and they do. That's just what's going on here. So there's a way of getting rid of microbes that is detrimental to the entire terrain. And then there's a way of balancing that terrain through herbal medicine and general. And so I really like to bring this conversation back to pro-microbial, as in pro-beneficial microbial, we could say. If there is, and then I also like to think that about what is the role and the function of a parasite. In the same way that I like to think about what is the role and the function of a quote unquote invasive plant. Well, these plants are inhabiting a habitat for a reason, and they're doing something that's restorative of the terrain. What it is might be a cycle of 70 or 80 years that is also the same cycle of time as a human being, but there's bigger cycles to these types of things. And the same could be said in the microcosmic down to the parasite. Why are these parasites there? What is their role? What is their function? Does it really make sense to get rid of all of them? Surely it makes sense to get rid of parasites if they are, out of control and whatnot, but it's a bigger conversation than just taking something that's going to kill parasites. We're going to have to also work with the elimination channels and also eliminating the reason why parasites are there in the first place. So that said, add bay leaf to that. We'll have another visit with anti-parasites someday, and we'll add bay leaf to that and the role of parasites. And that's why I like to call it now, instead of the immune system, I like to call it the I'm unity system. I'm at one. I'm no longer fighting against things. I'm no longer fighting against germs, disease. The disease is without ease. I'm at one. I take responsibility. And as a pain relief, in particular against gout and arthritic pain, these like rheumatisms and stuff like that, the inflammations of the joint through the buildup of uric acid. That's excellent for that. So how can we use it? Well, you can cook with it. You can you can order food with it, and maybe send a thankful tweet to Chipotle if you get one. Thank you for considering me in your healthy options or whatever. Thank you for considering my memory enhancement in my digestive system. Chipotle. I think this is the most practical way of introducing bay leaf into your daily life. Just getting some bay leaf from the herb shop. You got bay leaf at my herb shop. You can find it on my herb shop online. And I have all of these things, by the way. And so you can burn it as an incense. I just made an incense called Oracle of Delphi, which has got bay leaf, and it's got some other ones that in my research I've discovered, which probably would have been burned at this particular period in Greece. Some galbanum, some labdamen, mastix, it's like citrusy resins. It's fantastic. And this is a type of incense that I roll personally with my hands with a high mind. And I will burn this when I'm doing something that I feel like requires a high mind. And there's the sedated mind where okay, and we're back. Don't know where I was. I'm not going to edit that. I'm just going to let it go. Here we are. All right. Burned as an incense, as an aromatic steam. Just put some bay leaves into a pot of water and bring it to a boil. Keep it covered. Put a towel over your head. Open up the cover gently, as if you're tiptoeing into a hot tub. It can be overpowering to cannonball into a hot tub, right? So same thing when you're doing this aromatic steam inhalation for the purpose of moving mucus, busting mucus, helping with the respiratory system, clearing up your sinuses, clearing up your mind, clarity. It's awesome. Feels good. Maybe you just want to put some bay leaves into a pot of water and bring it to a boil and then just let it simmer on the stove while you do the dishes or something like that. And you keep a close eye on it and let it just steam aromatize your house. If you have a wood stove, you could do that. That's really cool. And so as a tincture, I've made a tincture of bay leaf with Melissa officinalis, with the bee balm, and some other things, and some motherwort and hawthorn, and these herbs that are all sacred to Leo and the heart, moving, bringing that heart space into a very strong boundary that's open, an electromagnetic field that's open and able to project out and also receive lots of joy and comfort in a very healthy and protected way. It's called Sunny Comfort. And it's a tincture that I made with herbs that I've harvested myself, all fresh. So the bay leaf I got from my time in Italy earlier this year from the garden. And I've made a hydrosol. Now, I distill plants for their essential oils and what's called a hydrosol, which is the floral water. And whereas an incense has that phallic shape to it, and it's burning and it's hot and it's sending the smoke vapor in one direction, basically, at first, up towards heaven. It has like a very masculine way of clearing space. Whereas a hydrosol, or the floral water, has that, paramagnetic, all around emotional aspect of clearing and cleansing. I've been distilling plants for a long time. And I'll tell you, the distillate that I made from the bay leaf is probably the best I've ever made. It is so pure. It feels so good. It's so cleansing and clarifying. So I love this for clearing my field, but also I'll spray it on my face because it's just a really nice facial tonic as well. So find those on my site, and I'm putting them together in a little Leo box set as well. It's going to be available for a short time. Grow it, put it in the garden. If you live in a place where bay leaf will grow year round, it makes an excellent hedgerow. So it's evergreen. So your neighbors will never see you through it. It's awesome. So over there in the Mediterranean area in Italy, I'm thinking of, the garden is surrounded by a fence that is bay leaf, and everybody else's is too. Some are jasmine, some are bay, some are oleander, whatever. Some are mahonia or holly. But everyone's garden's got this hedgerow, and it's really cool to just think, wow, I want. It's crazy that people sell it. I sell it though. Okay, a leaf in your wallet. This is back to the magical aspect. All different degrees of medicine here, right? That's one of the, if you're into wealth as money, let green beget green. If you're into carrying bay leaf with you because you enjoy the company of herbs and you know that they're magical, and just by carrying them with you, they provide abundance or the medicines that they provide. Some cases protection, other cases stealth. In the case of bay leaf, it's going to provide that sunny salubrity. And so I carry it in my pocket. I carry it in my breast pocket. So it's close to my heart because it is a Leo plant. And a tea for drinking. So you could just put some, you ever tried this? Drinking a tea of bay leaf? Just put a couple bay leaves into a cup of water and drink it as a tea and blow your mind. It is so good. It tastes awesome as a tea. It's really strong. You could take a cloth and put it into that tea and use it as a compress for all of the things that we mentioned here, for cleaning up wounds, for healing pain associated with gout and arthritis. It's awesome for that. For washing yourself and feeling clarified again. Just it's as simple as putting some bay leaf into some water and washing yourself with it. But you can also drink it too. So there's some tips for bay leaf how-to. You can find some of that medicine from tippecanoeherbs.com. And another slide that wasn't quite finished, but yep, there we are. So I have one last thing I want to say, and that is regarding the Apollo mission. I don't know if I can do this on here. I'm not going to. I had this, I mean, it's a video of the Apollo lunar mission. So interesting ritual, right? You have the sun, the Apollo, who's came into what seemed like maybe like a version of the Garden of Eden, that after the fall, in the original Garden of Eden, there was a serpent. Serpent was the serpent was a friend. Well, it wasn't a friendly serpent. It was a deceiver, but it wasn't scary yet. It wasn't scary until the veil was lifted. And so when Apollo came to the garden, he was just like, first thing, boom, right through the heart, right through the head or whatever. So we had a first thing, we got to get rid of the serpent, as if to suggest that he's at this garden, Gaia's garden, after the fall. If this is the Garden of Eden, okay, nice place. I'll be taking it from here. Nice lady, I'll be taking that. Thank you. That's mine now. That's mine. And then there's the Oracle of Delphi, right? Just like the deception along with NASA. So Apollo and NASA are really connected too, because it's the Apollo mission that was the one that allegedly went to the moon in 1969. And then, we lost the technology, as they said, and it'd be too painful of a process to rebuild and go back again. And the proof that we have for that is the testimony of 3 Freemasons and this video footage that is hilarious. It's hilarious. So I guess I'll just say, some people accept that. I don't. That's fine. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarity when I see that type of stuff. It's a social release for me of fun. A lot of people accept it without seeing the actual footage, and maybe they just have this picture in their mind nostalgically of the footage and stuff like that. But I'll invite you, just like just thinking of some bands that I liked in high school, and I go back and I listen to some of these bands. I'm like, oh man, what? This is horrible. And you could, I think a lot of people, if they really stand behind all of these things, they just go back and look at the videos, and then see if that's something that you want to stand behind and defend, because that would be the evidence. The other evidence would be a piece of a moon rock, which was given to the museum in Denmark, and then it turned out to be a fake. It turned out to be a piece of petrified wood. So that one's already been debunked. So what we got is the testimony of 3 Freemasons and this video footage. Everything else could be easily just delivered. So Apollo is associated with that, and associated with, even though we have the God of truth and prophecy, here is the inversion, which I think has been going on for centuries and centuries, is that the deception. What if Daphne got away? What if he never actually took Daphne as his crown, and the bay leaf this whole time has been associated with, brightness and everything like that, but Daphne remains chaste as Daphne laurelea, or whatever it's called, the spurge laurel that lives in the woods. And and what if, to me, it's not a stretch of the imagination at all to look at the moon mission and say, well, that's absolutely, I'm not buying that. It's obviously, to me, it's obvious, but anyway, to a lot of people, it's not, and it's fine. I'm not here to change anybody's mind on it or whatever. I just thought I'd point out that how Apollo has been associated with these types of things, and then I'll bring it back to Apollo being associated with the sun as a solar god. Apollo, a pole, a central axis, a central pillar. The word Apollo is related to apple. There's your pole, there's your center, there's your toroidal field. Cut it down the middle, you have your heart, which is the area of where life grows. That's the seeds. Heart of the tree. Centripetal, centrifugal, dialectrical plane, right? Dialectrical field right there, right down the middle. World axis, the apple of truth, of good, of knowledge of good and evil, perhaps. The tongue. Hey, I got a good idea. What if we're actually being pulled to the ground by a spinning ball? Deception, right? Lots and lots of deception. Apple, and then Paul, from the name Paul, as in the biblical Paul as well. Interesting. Apollo. So pole, Paul, apple, Apollo. Apulia, which is the heel region in again, the stiletto, the pole, the thing that holds up the boot in Italy. It's all related to. Well, I think that'll wrap it up. I think I said everything I want to say. The Bay Laurel tree, the Omphalos stone that's found at the Temple of Delphi, really is to me, the central axis that I was looking for in this episode, and how people can congregate around the meaning of bay leaf to kind of get to that central axis, what it is that draws people towards that. And then how are we finding that central pillar, that central axis in our home? Through ritual and mundane ritual, such as cooking, bringing us together as a family, breaking bread around a table, and dipping it into our soup and being like, "Wow, I can't believe it. Can you believe this? I'm going to tweet at you. You left the bay leaf in here. How gross." Radiate your electromagnetic fields, y'all. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties that we had, but that's what I get from recording in my basement. I'll try and make it better next time. Ciao for now.